Welcome to the Thinking Stack.
Great to be here.
You know that feeling, that nagging sense that you should be doing more?
Yeah, like improving yourself, reaching some kind of next level.
Exactly. Well, today we're diving into why that feeling might be less about, something genuinely missing in you.
And maybe more about what's being skillfully sold to you.
Hmm. We're taking a hard look at the self-help industry.
Right, and how it sometimes feels a bit like, well, like ego dressed up as enlightenment.
Yeah, monetizing pain instead of maybe fostering real lasting change.
Hmm.
And look, you, our listener, you might have the books, the journal, the half-finished routines.
We've all dabbled, right? Bought the book, tried the thing.
Totally. But
Yeah.
the question is it actual work? Or are we sometimes just kind of avoiding the actual work by looking busy?
That's the core of it. So our mission today is to try and cut through some of the noise.
Expose maybe the less ethical sides?
Yeah, and offer some clarity. Help distinguish real healing from, let's say, stylish self-deception.
Because, like one source put it, pretty bluntly,
Oh, yeah, that quote.
you are not lazy, you are not broken, you are just being sold the same dopamine hit in different spiritual packaging.
Oof, straight to the point.
Right. Okay, so let's start there. Layer 1, cognitive cleanse. What's actually true behind the scenes?
Well, let's look at some facts. First off, this industry is booming.
Big time, right?
Huge. We're talking projected numbers like $67 billion globally by 2030.
67 billion, that's staggering.
It is. And you could argue it's become this like trillion-dollar dopamine machine.
Engineered to sell hope, you mean? Not necessarily transformation.
Kind of feels that way sometimes. It thrives on repeat customers, right? Making change feel possible.
But maybe not always letting it fully set keeps you coming back for more.
Exactly. And here's the really uncomfortable flip side. Truth number 2, mental health outcomes. They seem to be getting worse in some key ways.
Worse. How so?
Well, Time magazine reported U.S. suicide rates are up, 30% since 2000?
30%, that's deeply
Yeah.
concerning.
It is. And about a third of adults are reporting symptoms of clinical anxiety or depression.
But wait, we have more access than ever to self-help, coaching, therapy, all those wellness apps.
Right. You'd think things would be improving.
So why aren't they? What's the disconnect here?
I think it points to a core problem. We often mistake consuming wisdom for, actually embodying it.
It's like reading the recipe doesn't mean you bake the cake.
Precisely. Eckhart Tolle said it perfectly. You cannot get enlightened by reading a book about it. And so much of modern self-help, it's built on what you might call dopamine economics.
Dopamine economics. Okay, unpack that a bit.
It's all about the quick wins, the easy fixes, new routines, trendy
You
hacks.
feel good snippets.
Yeah, little hits of, I'm doing something. It's content, really. And it can be addictive,
So it flatters the ego, makes you
Sure.
feel productive.
while maybe distracting you from the deeper, messier stuff, the core wounds.
Like putting a fancy Band-Aid on a deep cut.
Exactly. So the raw signal here, if we boil it down for this layer,
Yeah.
most self-help offers relief from the symptoms of ego, not its surgery.
Okay. Symptoms, not surgery.
Yeah.
Got it. That's a strong statement.
It is.
All right, let's shift gears a bit. Layer 2. Moral intelligence. What's the right thing here, contextually? What about the ethics?
Yeah, this is crucial because there's often this unspoken sort of moral lie embedded in the culture.
Which is?
It's basically, if you're suffering, it's your fault. You're not manifesting hard enough.
Ouch. So it flips pain into personal failure.
Exactly. It takes real struggle, even systemic trauma, and reframes it as like, you didn't try hard enough. You didn't think positive enough.
That sounds like it taps into shame.
Totally. It
Yeah.
turns pain into shame. And it ignores the bigger picture.
You mean like external factors?
Right. This whole push towards radical responsibilities, sometimes called neoliberal self-help, it conveniently forgets about things like racism, inequality, economic hardship.
Yeah, you can't just manifest your way out of systemic oppression.
You really can't. And then there's toxic positivity.
Ah, yes. The good vibes only police.
Huh? Pretty much. It's when empathy gets replaced by these relentless demands to just be positive.
So real grief, real trauma, legitimate anger about injustice, it just gets dismissed,
Brushed aside with things like, just think positive,
Yeah.
or look on the bright side.
which is incredibly invalidating.
Deeply. Think about concrete examples, right?
Yeah.
Like the single mom working 3 jobs being told she just needs to meditate more to handle the stress.
Yeah, that feels tone deaf.
Or marginalized people being told to just vibrate higher to escape systemic issues they face daily.
It's not just unhelpful, it's kind of gaslighting, isn't it?
It really is. It's an ethical failure. It blames the individual for things far beyond their personal control.
Makes me think of that Torah Brack quote.
Oh, the yoga one.
Yeah, beware of spiritual practices that make you feel superior. That's just ego doing yoga.
It's so good. It cuts right through it.
So the moral intelligence questions we should be asking ourselves are,
Things like, who actually profits when I blame myself for everything?
good question.
And who benefits if I keep buying courses instead of, say, demanding justice or better conditions?
Right. Because sometimes what people need isn't another journal prompt.
Exactly. Sometimes they need justice, safety, community support, maybe medicine, not just more positive thinking.
Okay, that puts a sharp focus on the ethics. Let's zoom out again. Layer 3. Systemic foresight. What happens next? What are the bigger consequences?
This is about seeing the wider patterns, the long-term effects. And there's that saying, someone said it.
The one about the system.
Yeah, you're not broken, you're living in a broken system. Whoever said it, it should be everywhere.
Because self-help so often does what? It individualizes systemic issues.
Precisely. It takes these big societal problems and shrinks them down to individual mindset problems.
And the ripple effects, the second-order consequences of that are?
Well, you see people buying stacks of books instead of maybe learning to set firm boundaries in their lives.
Or investing in relationships.
Right. You see coaches potentially making good money while their clients might stay stuck in the same loops. And you see these huge systems of oppression, economic, racial, whatever, just chugging along untouched.
Well, everyone's busy self-diagnosing based on, like, Instagram posts.
Exactly. It can create this loop, almost like learned helplessness.
How does that loop work?
It's like, feel pain or dissatisfaction, buy a self-help solution, get a temporary boost, feel better for a bit, inevitably relapse because the root cause isn't fixed. Blame yourself, you didn't do it right. Repeat the purchase with the next promise.
Wow, that sounds less like healing and more like a trap.
One source called it a behavioral Ponzi scheme. Pretty harsh, but you see the logic.
It feeds itself.
And ultimately, instead of challenging or disrupting the systems that might be causing some of the pain.
The industry can end up reinforcing them
Right.
by keeping the focus solely on individual fixes.
Exactly. Individual solutions for societal problems.
Okay, that's a sobering thought on the systemic level. Let's bring it back to us, the individual. Layer 4. Embodied insight. What about our actual biology? How are we wired?
Right, because this isn't just happening in our minds. Our bodies are deeply involved. And a key thing to grasp is our nervous system. It's wired for survival, primarily, meaning it often craves coherence, not truth. It prefers familiar patterns, even painful ones.
Over the unknown. Even the unknown is potentially better.
Often, yeah. Familiar pain can feel safer to the nervous system than unfamiliar freedom. Evolutionarily, fitting in and being efficient mattered more than, say, achieving enlightenment.
So our biology might actually resist the very changes self-help promotes.
To some extent, yes. Plus, trauma shapes our identity. For someone who's been through a lot, healing can actually feel threatening.
Like losing who you are, even if who you are is based on surviving hardship.
Exactly. It can feel like ego death, not progress, which is terrifying.
So just reading a book isn't going to rewire deeply ingrained trauma-based patterns.
Not usually, no. Neuroplasticity is real. Our brains can change. But it takes repetition, discomfort, and time.
Not just vision boards and affirmations.
Right. And a lot of self-help kind of bypasses the body. It overloads the mind with ideas, but neglects the somatic experience.
Which is where the real change needs to happen. In the body.
That's where it integrates. Real transformation often happens when our nervous systems are regulated, not just motivated. When change is felt physically, not just believed mentally.
Reminds me of Bethel van der Kolk again. Your body keeps the score, not your bookshelf.
Perfect quote for this. Self-help often treats biology like this minor detail.
When really it's the engine driving our behavior.
Absolutely, it's central.
Okay?
Yeah.
So if that's our wiring, let's move to layer 5. Human-centered design. How do real people actually behave and change? Let's get real.
Yeah, this is the reality check. Forget the idealized self-help narrative for a second. How does change actually happen for most humans?
My guess. Not just because a book told them to.
Exactly. People tend to change when the change feels safe, when it's social, like others are doing it too, and when it's somehow linked to their status or identity.
So it's about the context, not just the content.
Largely, yes. Behavior design theory tells us adoption depends on ease, emotional reward, and environmental cues. Can I do it easily? Does it feel good quickly? Does my environment support it?
And self-help often misses this. It assumes logic leads to action.
Often, yeah. It overestimates willpower and underestimates the power of environment and social norms.
And some offerings seem designed to keep you hooked,
Yeah.
right? Not necessarily to succeed and leave.
Definitely feels that way sometimes. You're not manifesting enough. Buy my advanced course.
Still haven't healed. You need my exclusive 10-day retreat.
It's what we talked about before, dependency dressed as enlightenment. It's not designed for genuine independent transformation for many.
So what would real design for change look like?
It would probably involve way more community support, making failure normal, even expected, prioritizing context, the person's actual life situation over catchy clickbait advice.
Why?
But hey, that doesn't sell as easily. It's messier, less glamorous.
All right. Harder to package and scale.
Yeah.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate now. Layer 6, risk and resilience. What if we're wrong about some of this? What are the risks of being too critical?
That's fair. We need to question our own perspective, too. What are the potential downsides or blind spots in taking such a critical stance?
Like, what if that morning routine isn't just procrastination? What if it genuinely helps someone structure their day?
Totally possible.
Yeah.
Or what if that vision board isn't just a coping mechanism, but actually helps someone stay focused and motivated?
Yeah. And what if your coach is actually helpful, even if they aren't, say, a licensed therapist? What if they offer practical accountability that works for you?
These are valid points. It's not black and white. But it prompts us to risk-proof our approach, to ask tougher questions like, what happens when my self-help inspired goals fail? What's my fallback? How do I handle disappointment?
What happens when just thinking positive isn't enough? When reality is genuinely tough?
What happens when the spiritual bypassing using spiritual ideas to avoid difficult feelings unravels? What's underneath?
It forces a deeper look at resilience, doesn't it?
Exactly. Real resilience isn't about avoiding the dark stuff. It's about facing what's real, even when it's dark.
It's about building a self that can handle paradox, ambiguity, not just chant mantras.
Beautifully put. It's about holding complexity. Remember, Rumi, the wound is the place where the light enters you.
So real healing isn't necessarily a neat and tidy vision board.
It's often more like a reckoning, a facing of what is.
Okay, powerful stuff. So final layer, layer 7, execution engine. If a lot of mainstream self-help is questionable, what can we actually do? How do we test and adapt?
Right, let's get practical. If we're wary of the hype, what's the alternative? And I think the equation is something like feedback times repetition times humility.
Okay, feedback, repetition, humility. Break that down.
It means less passive consumption, more active experimentation. Try something, see what actually happens for you, learn from it, adjust, and try again. With humility, acknowledging you don't have all the answers.
So give me some concrete examples, like instead of a typical self-help trope.
Okay, instead of just visualize abundance,
Right.
try actually budgeting meticulously for 90 days and maybe journal about every single emotion that comes up around spending money.
Yeah.
Get real data on your patterns.
Okay, another one. Instead of manifest your soulmate.
Maybe try 1 month of really conscious dating. Afterwards, sit down and reflect honestly. What patterns showed up? What did I learn about myself and my attractions? Track it.
Right. Less magic, more observation.
Exactly. Instead of the vague, raise your vibration. Try concrete embodied practices, maybe cold showers for nervous system regulation, consistent journaling, therapy if you need support, getting enough sleep, like actually 8 hours, maybe doing some form of service for others, tangible actions.
That sounds like closing the loop is key. Act, reflect, adjust, repeat.
That's the engine. That's what fosters real change over time. It's not sexy. It doesn't sell books quite as easily.
But it's real.
But it's real, yeah.
Okay, this has been a lot to unpack. Let's try and bring it all together for a final mic drop moment.
Let's do it. Here's the core message, maybe. You listening. You are not a broken project.
You are not a business plan needing optimization.
You are not a marketing funnel waiting to be converted.
You're a human being, a living nervous system trying to figure things out.
In a world that, let's be honest, is pretty good at monetizing your wounds and insecurities.
So the takeaway, most self-help, it isn't sacred.
It's sales, often. Not always, but often.
And what you probably need isn't more affirmations.
Maybe you need more friction, more encountering the edges of your comfort zone.
You need failure, embraced as feedback.
And you need honest input from people who care. And you definitely need forgiveness for yourself.
So here's a challenge. Next time someone gives you that easy answer, like just raise your vibration.
Yeah.
Ask them how they deal with the hard stuff. Grief, failure, shame.
And if they can't give you a real grounded answer, if it's all just platitudes,
Then maybe they're not really a teacher.
maybe they're just an actor playing a part.
And you listening, you can stop performing too.
Yeah. Welcome back to yourself, warts and all.
This was The Thinking Stack.
We're not really here to give you comfort food for thought.
We're here to aim for clarity.
And if this stirred something up in you, maybe some discomfort,
Good. That's the point. Sit with it. Don't just scroll past.
mull it over, see what resonates.
Next time, we're diving into another messy topic.
Oh yeah, what's up next?
Is hustle culture just capitalism's wet dream?
Ooh, okay. That sounds juicy.
Until then, stay sharp
Stay human.
and maybe stay just a little bit uncomfortable.